Lewis. The National Football League and the Players Association have agreed to extend their current collective bargaining agreement by 24 hours. It's a one-day respite to continue negotiating a new labor deal that will avoid a lockout and potential cancellation of the NFL's upcoming season. The new deadline will now be 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. All right, the SEC making some big-time crackdowns. They're looking to protect you from banks that may alter your mortgage while curbing other Wall Street bonuses. They say it's time for banks to stop padding their books. With me is Republican Congressman Michael Grimm of New York. Congressman, great to see you again.
Nice to see you.
I want to start by talking about the way the banks are talking about the loans on their books, and it seems to me there's some stinky lying going on here. Do you agree, and do you think this has possibly led us to mischaracterize the recovery in the banking industry?
Well, I'm not so sure we can say it was miscategorized, but what I will say is, and I think it's extremely important here, this is where the SEC has a very important role to play. This is their job. Proper enforcement of the rules and regulations, whether it be the way they're marking these things down, whether it be the transparency and disclosure to the end users. This is what the SEC is supposed to do, and that's why it's the proper enforcement and oversight that we look to them for, and this is a specific area where they need to be doing that.
You know, I'm going to show you some numbers from the banking industry about what we saw at the worst of the meltdown in terms of earnings and what we see now. Let's take a look at those numbers. All right, so we've got some of the biggest banking and investment houses in the country. Goldman Sachs, you see, it goes from a loss in 2008 to earnings of $8.35 billion. Bank of America also makes a similar turn, although they weren't in the negative, in the red, back in 2008. J.P. Morgan, also a big turn. These big institutions look so good on paper, but when you pull away all of the tricks of the trade, what you find is that they're still suffering from the downturn. Maybe we've overestimated the degree to which these banks are in recovery.
And that's very possible. But again, that's why we need the SEC to step up and do their job. I've been critical a lot, especially after yesterday's decision of the SEC, but here's an opportunity to actually say this is what they need to do, this is where we need to support them, this is where Congress needs to be supportive. We have rules and regulations that demand, this is not an option for them, it demands that these banks, these companies disclose to the world exactly how they wrote these things down, how they structure all the new structures and the proper accounting. So it's not an option for them. This is something that absolutely must be done, and it's the SEC's role to ensure that they are doing exactly what they need to do according to the rules and regulations. But again, I have to emphasize, after a ruling like we saw yesterday from the SEC, unfortunately there's not enough opportunities to praise them, because with decisions like yesterday with incentive on compensation, that was one of the worst decisions I think I've ever seen.
Well, you've been right in the thick of it, having worked for the FBI, looked at these things from behind the scenes, so you really know what the SEC does and what their street cred is. I do want you to talk about your opposition to the discussion on bonuses. Tell me what's wrong with what the SEC had to say on that.
Well, it's wrong on every level. First of all, it goes against what we believe as Americans, our principles, our capitalism. I cannot believe that we're going to start having, first of all, non-elected government officials deciding what the private sector can and cannot pay its employees. That is just fundamentally wrong right there. It sets an extremely dangerous precedent. But on many other levels, we're trying to compete globally now, whether it be Singapore, China, whether it be Geneva. We have emerging markets that are taking our market share in the financial sector. We have just bought a ticket to send those that were considering leaving the United States, we bought them a ticket to leave. If we are going to limit the best and brightest ability to make money, we are definitely doing the wrong thing here. And in emerging markets, with the capital that's fleeing the United States, it's the last thing we can do. This is going to affect hedge funds. It's going to affect private equity. I can go on and on. This is certainly not the way we should be regulating, and these are non-elected officials that are deciding how private companies are going to compensate their employees. That is fundamentally wrong.
Well, some in Washington believe that there's only so much money you should make, I guess. Congressman Grimm, thanks for helping us out today. Great hearing your point of view.
Thank you.
Some of the billions in cuts during this push for austerity include financial aid for college. So how do you go about getting help and sending your kids to school? Recovering your assets next.